You guys, I wasn't even planning on filming right now, but I just found the craziest story and I have to read it to you. I got through like the first paragraph and this is long and I stopped what I was doing and I'm filming. We are filming a video. My hair is still wet. Like, this was not planned. So I was on the subreddit Creepy Encounters and I found a story that says I could have been one of Epstein's victims, and we have to read this. I was watching the Jeffrey Epstein doc on Netflix last night and I am spooked. Literally had a mini panic attack with all these memories flooding in. As I'm laying in bed watching, a girl's face flashes across the screen and I recognize one of his victims as one of my really good childhood friends. I don't know if it belongs in this subreddit, but here's my story. I've lived in South Florida almost all of my life with my crazy controlling parents that wouldn't let me do anything as a kid. No phone calls to friends, no extracurricular activities unless it was academic. Couldn't have friends over, and you can forget about me going over to anyone's house. Plus, my dad worked at my school during my elementary school years, so I had to be on my best behavior. So when I went to middle school, I was so fucking pumped. Finally, some type of freedom. My personality started to shine and making friends came easy to me. Fast forward to a year in and I'd become really good friends with these two girls. We'll call them Heather and Sharon. They were both pretty, popular, friendly, but what fascinated me most was that Heather was the only girl in middle school that I knew that was able to sleep over at a boy's house. It was something so foreign to me since my parents told me I couldn't even go on a date with a boy until after I graduated. High school or college, they didn't specify. So I automatically thought she was the coolest chick I'd ever met. Throughout our friendship, we were known as the tripod. We all had the same classes and lunch periods, so we all got pretty close. Over time, Heather would always ask me to hang out with her and Sharon either after school or on the weekends, but with my parents, there was no way in hell. I did attempt multiple times to ask for permission with no success each time, not even a maybe. I was so bummed because I always felt left out having Heather and Sharon hang out without me, something I would eventually become grateful for. One day while sitting out in the courtyard for lunch, Heather pulled me aside and asked what I thought about skipping school for one day. I instantly freaked out and thought about the automated message that schools call home with to let your parents know you weren't at school. If my parents ever got that, my ass would be toast. So I shut the idea down right away, kind of laughed it off because there'd be no way to pull it off. But she literally would not stop asking, so eventually she convinced me and we were ready to start the planning. It took us about a week, every day during lunch, trying to figure out how to pull this off. The thrill of it had me so excited as I've never done anything like this. The plan was to have my mom drop me off at school as usual and have the girls there waiting for me, and we would just simply walk off to the gas station that's near the school and have one of Heather's friends pick us up. Not sure how I planned on dodging the school, but whatever. Oh, and I forgot to add, Heather made it a point several times to remind me that I needed to wear something that would give me an innocent look. I blew this off because I was already 13 years old. I looked innocent enough. Plan goes smoothly, we were walking to the gas station, but as we're walking, Heather's cell phone is blowing up. Like constant phone calls and texts coming through. Each one she answers just meet us at the gas station like we usually do. At this point I'm confused because I thought it was supposed to be the tripod hanging out for the day. As we get closer to the gas station, I see a group of like 7 other girls standing there that are around the same age range, 12 to 14 years old. Some girls I've seen around school, others I don't recognize, but they all perk up when they see Heather walk up. All of a sudden Heather yells, "Who's ready to make some money?" This is terrifying. This is actually fucking terrifying. Are we gonna continue this? We are, but I'm scared. And almost all the girls raise their hand and start cheering. I grab Sharon and ask her what she's talking about, and the look that Sharon gave me is one that I'll never forget. It was like she was saying, "Get out now while you can." It just made me very uncomfortable and she never ended up saying anything. It was just weird. A big group of young girls who should be in school just hanging out at a gas station. As we're standing there, 2 black Lincoln Town cars pull up and make a sudden stop right in front of us. Heather starts numbering the girls and tells the first group to get in the first car, and as they do, the car speeds away. The other one slowly rolls the window down and I see this older man with sunglasses on just sitting there smiling. He asks if we're ready to go to the mansion, which excites the 2 other girls standing behind me. He opens the door, they both jump in, followed by Sharon. Heather's standing next to me and nudges me to go, but as she does, I start going off on her, asking her what the hell is going on, where are we going, who is this man, and why she didn't mention this in any of the plans. She's looking almost annoyed at me and says, "Out of all the girls I bring, you're the only one that's giving me a problem. I thought you would want to get out and finally have some fun, and with your body, you could make a killing." Cats, not right now. You're lying. At the time, I was so naive, I didn't know exactly what she meant, but by the tone of her voice and how pressured she was making me feel, I ended up backing out and ran back to school. Thank God. As embarrassed as I felt for bailing on my friends, I feared my mom and her belt a lot more. Plus, going off in a car with someone I've never met screamed stranger danger. I'm so grateful that my parents put that fear in me, or else I don't know if I would have made that smart decision. After that, I barely hung out with Heather again. She tried a few more times, but I got bad vibes from her and cut her off, but I always saw her randomly walk out of school and towards the gas station, always with a group of girls. Sharon, on the other hand, she started to spiral into a depression slowly. She would only hang out with Heather and would cling to her like a lost puppy. I noticed she would miss school more frequently until one day she just stopped coming altogether. Years later, I found out she committed, and recently, after watching the documentary, I'm convinced she was one of Jeffrey Epstein's victims and Heather was one of his recruiters. And then there's an edit that says, I should have mentioned this happened in 2004 in West Palm Beach. I reached out to the only childhood friend I stay in contact with, and she confirmed that it was in fact my friend who we went to middle school with in the documentary. Since this morning, I've contacted a friend who's in law enforcement to see if I could speak with someone about what I know. Even the little information I have could help out in some way. As for Sharon, I never met anyone in her family or had any contact information as I was on major lockdown back then, and this was 16 years ago. Still trying to track them down to see if they knew anything about this. It could help explain why she might have taken her life. I'll keep you updated. That is absolutely one of the worst things I've ever read on Reddit. I have no words for that. I saw that, I went to Creepy Encounters, I went to the top stories, that was one of the first ones I saw, and I instantly knew I had to film it. I instantly knew I had to tell you guys this story, read it with you. Because if I would have read that by myself, I would be spiraling right now. That is so scary. I am so glad you got out of that. I can't even imagine what would have happened if you would have went with them. I just that's insane. Do we read more stories? Or is that the end? Do I just end it here? It's been 10 minutes of filming. There's no way we just end it here. I feel I have to read more stories, but I also how do we get past that? We're gonna read more stories, I guess. This one, we're just gonna move on. I have literally no words for that. It is absolutely mind-blowing. I feel I'm just gonna keep repeating myself over and over again that that's so crazy, that's so insane, I can't believe that happened, I'm so glad you're okay. And I just feel we need to move on. This one says, date with a future killer. On June 3rd, 2016, I had a social media event. I was an Instagram influencer and the event was a golf tournament. Was it waste management? It was. It totally was. I posted on social to ask followers to come, so when he showed up, it didn't surprise me. Sure, the tickets were $250, but for some reason, that didn't click with me. It was a drinking event as well. It was definitely waste management, and he showed up at least tipsy, but having a good time. He was also an Instagram model who I knew online. He asked me out on a date after the tournament. I was a single mom, and because of the event, my parents were watching the kid until the next day. I said sure. We went off on the date, went to a bar and grabbed some food. The man was handsome, but mostly charming as heck. We had a beer, and then in his car, he offered me some weed. I rarely smoke, but decided, what the heck. We hotboxed and went off to a bar. He was friendly with everyone and made me laugh quite a few times. Then off to the liquor store for more alcohol, and finally to his house. We're not gonna read this whole next part. It says I was drunk and high, so it was easy to sleep with me. We're gonna skip some of that. He had driven and my car was still at the golf tournament location, and we were too far for me to afford an Uber back to my car. The next morning, I went to the restroom and afterward noticed a long pipe coming from the toilet after I flushed. He came out upset because it was to water the weed him and his roommate were growing. I didn't know, or was too drunk or high still to click. I apologized deeply and was scared. Wait, why was he upset that you flushed the toilet? Were you not supposed to use the bathroom? I'm confused. He came downstairs and I looked at the walls and decor for the first time. Knives and weapons were used as decorations all over the house. I waited for him to have breakfast and drive me back to my car, trying not to show panic. In the car, I knew I needed an excuse that wouldn't hurt his feelings. I told him I had a blast and I'm so bummed because I really like him, but my child's father passed away when he was 1, true, and I can't have CPS taken away from me because I'm around someone growing weed. I told him I didn't care about the weed and didn't want him to change, so it was a bummer. I let him make out with me one last time as he dropped me off. I was shaking as I drove off because of the vibes. The very next day after he dropped me off, he met a girl that was 10 years our junior and an 18-year-old mini-me. He dated her for 3 weeks, she dumped him, and he stalked her like crazy. So much so, he was arrested a few times. In September of the same year, he gets out of jail the last time and heads to a bar. Meets a girl there, takes her home, ends up murdering her, chopping up her body, cutting her heart out, and setting her on fire. He's currently serving life for his crime, and I get flashbacks all the time. What the fuck? What is actually going on this subreddit? From my understanding, Creepy Encounters is supposed to be a very mild let's not meet. I feel like these should be on let's not meet. Absolutely. We're gonna keep going. This one says my friend's mother tried to kidnap me. I don't even know where to start because it never occurred to me that something like this was possible, but here I am. Ever since I was 3 years old, I knew one girl. I'm gonna call her Emma, because we were in the same group in kindergarten. Later, we attended the same school. We were never really close until we turned 9 or 10 because we got into the same group of friends, and soon we became best friends. Not surprising for that age. We'd hang out a lot, literally spent all the free time with each other. I knew that Emma had problems at home. Her mother was an alcoholic and an addict, even though she had denied it all the time. Most of the time we'd spend on the streets, however. Rarely we would stay at my place when it was raining or during storms and blizzards. But we never entered her apartment when someone was at home, and even then never stayed longer than 10 minutes. My mother suspected she was stealing stuff. A pair of golden earrings went missing and we never found them again, and just asked me to be more careful around her. And eventually, I noticed what my mother meant. Emma would come up with crazy excuses to stay in my apartment, like saying that if we go under the rain, we would catch a cold during her period, and in the future, she wouldn't be able to give birth due to that. I wasn't a dumb kid, but decided not to point it out. One summer afternoon, I decided to bring up the topic of Emma's family again. She took me to her home and no one was there. Everything went normal and we started hanging out there more often. I noticed a lot of empty alcohol bottles and syringes around, but it wasn't my place to pry. A few days after that, when we entered, I noticed 2 extra pairs of shoes that weren't there before. And when we left the doorframe, I saw a woman and man sitting in a kitchen and smoking. I knew that Emma didn't have a father. He died when she was 2 or so I assumed it was her mother's friend. Is that my name? You changed a lot. Such a pretty face. I was so weirded out as she and that man stared at me intently, eyeing up my body and face. I was 10, so only later on I understood how creepy that was. I'm pretty sure I had never met her mother before, so she probably saw me in a kindergarten album. After that encounter, Emma started acting really strange, asking about my parents' full names, where exactly they work, whether I have extended family, persuading me to go to abandoned places. She literally dragged me to her place several more times where I met her mother and that man again. Weird comments, especially about my body and face, happened every time. I told my mother about Emma's behavior. I didn't tell about the weird stuff with her mother, and she banned me from hanging out with Emma completely. Important note, after me and Emma stopped talking, she transferred to another school by demand of her mother. It was a regular morning a month or 2 after I stopped talking with Emma. I was heading out to school when suddenly an old beaten up car pulled up near me and a woman came out of it. I couldn't see her face clearly due to the scarf around her face, and I assumed it was just a passenger getting out of a car, so I continued my way towards the school. My air just turned on, hang on. However, I haven't even made more than a step when she firmly grabbed my arm. She started saying something about my mother being in the hospital and that I needed to go with her. Her voice seemed familiar and the rest of the face too. She also said full names of my parents and that she's related to me from my uncle's side. She said his name too. I freaked out and started denying her demand to get in the car, so she grabbed my shoulder, placed her palm on my mouth, and dragged me to the car. That's when I saw the driver was the man from Emma's place. I bit the woman's hand as hard as I could, thrashed until she let me go, and ran back home. My mother came home furious after she was alerted that I never got to school, but she quickly calmed down when she saw my state. My clothes were torn on the sleeve, my arm heavily bruised, and I was sobbing. I was never an emotional kid, rarely showed even mild emotions. I explained everything that happened, and she showed me all the photos of relatives and asked if I recognized the woman, and I didn't. My mother hasn't said a word to me about that after, and we pretended it never happened. Today, I stumbled across Emma's Facebook, and there was a photo of her mother with that fucking scarf. I denied the possibility that it was her throughout my whole childhood. But here it was, a proof that makes it impossible to lie to myself anymore. I need to let it out because my mother never got me any psychological help after this, and I just bottled it up. Why did Emma's mother do that? Did Emma know about it? I guess I'll never know. FYI, our town has a huge drug net and our area has a lot of cases of human trafficking. I don't know whether any of this is relevant due to the situation, but decided to include it. Wait, but I actually can't handle these stories. These are terrifying. These are worse than the Let's Not Meet stories that I read. These are absolutely horrible. I'm in shock right now. I've always had the impression, mainly because of the description of creepy encounters, I've always had the impression that these were very mild, not life-threatening situations, mild Let's Not Meet stories, but that's so not true. We're gonna read one more because I'm in too fucking deep right now. This says I'm not giving you a ride, dude. This may be long, but it's something creepy I want to get off my chest. My friend and I, 19 female at the time, decided that because of the COVID lockdown, we needed to get out of the house to play some basketball at the park. After not being able to find my ball, I took a detour to the Walmart closest to the park we were meeting at. Walking in, I noticed a guy sitting outside smoking a cigarette, about 35-ish I would say. Not uncommon. I was also in a town known for being a little not so great, so I didn't pay any mind to anyone, really, as I strolled around the store. Grabbed a ball, checked out other things I was interested in, paid, and made my way out. Upon exiting, the man says, "Can you give me a ride?" I noticed his backpack. I have a criminal justice degree and I'm an avid true crime fan, generally cautious of my surroundings. I say, "No, sorry," and keep walking. "Please, I have a broken leg." I look down. He has a plastic boot on. My first thought was, Ted Bundy did this to lure in his victims too. "No way, dude." "No, sorry." "Well, which way are you heading?" I lie. "I'm going to blank to see my brother." I said a city about an hour away in the opposite direction. He didn't need an answer, but I gave him one. "I'll go there." "No, I don't feel comfortable letting strangers in my car. Just give me a ride to the gas station over there so I can charge my phone." He points across the street. "I'll call you a taxi, but I'm not giving you a ride." He looks me up and down as passerbys go into the store. I note there are plenty of witnesses. I have a broken leg. You're gonna make me walk over there? I'll call you a taxi. I am not giving you a ride. He puts a cigarette out and clenches the straps of his bag. Fine, whatever, bitch, and starts to walk away. I take that as an out of the conversation. Head for my car, press unlock on my key fob. Pressing unlock only once unlocks the driver's door to put the basketball in my car. I get in and hear the passenger side door handle move. It's him. The door was locked because I only pressed unlock once, thank God. My eyes widen and I get out yelling obscenities to get the fuck away from my car. I just need to charge my phone. After screaming enough to make him walk away, I get in and take the long way around the lot to exit. I notice him walking away from the store. This is where it gets weird. I was hosting at the restaurant I work at about a week later when someone walks in and asks for an application. I lock eyes with them, and it's him. There's no way he could have known where I worked. He says, "Hey, I remember you. Funny seeing you here," with a smirk. I tell him to apply online and say nothing else. "Okay," he says, walking out the door. I notice he has no boot on his foot anymore. I then run back to my manager to tell him the whole story, and if anyone applies today to let me know. Well, you guessed it, about an hour later it comes in. No, he didn't get hired. The next day, I get a friend request on Facebook. Blocked. A couple of days later, I'm outside by the dumpsters with my best friend when I see someone looking into the windows of my car, hand against them to have a good look in. I turn to my friend and tell her, that's him. She runs over and gives him the reaming of a lifetime. I've never seen anything like it. He keeps going, okay, 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 and leaves. After that week, I never saw him again. There was no way he could have known that I worked there or known my name to add me on Facebook. Long string of creepy coincidences. What would have happened if my passenger side door was unlocked? Creeps me out thinking about it. Okay, and on that note, we are done. We are done. I can't handle the subreddit. I actually can't. These are like nuts. I would say if you have any stories like this, I'll have my subreddit link down below, but I am praying that you guys don't have stories like this. Like, I'm just hoping that you have nothing even comparable to this, because I can't handle it, and I know you guys can't either. I know you can't. I don't know if I'll rejoin the subreddit again. I really don't know, because these are like a little too much. So we'll just see how this video goes. If you guys like it, like, let me know. But I think this is too much. I think it is. I have no idea. Let me know. I'm gonna go because I'm fucking blown away right now. That first story is still like literally one of the most traumatizing things I've ever read. But I'm gonna leave. I love you guys. I hope nothing like this has ever happened to you. I love you. I'm gonna go. I will see you in the next one. Bye. It's like I can't even ramble right now. Like, how do I end a video like that just talking about something fucking stupid? Like, what am I supposed to say? Oh yeah, I got fucked up this weekend and did stupid shit. Like, I can't go from that to that. I just can't. So I'm not going to. We're not rambling today. We're leaving. I'll ramble in my next video. I'm leaving. I have to process emotions. What the fuck? See ya.